Good morning, everybody. I watched a very interesting video a couple of days back featuring Jerry Buting, and I'll put the link so that you can go straight to it and watch for yourself. It's about 45 minutes long, but well worth looking at. One of the things he says is that if somebody does something wrong or bad one day, does that make them bad for the whole of their life? Clearly not. They aren't bad all the time. Now, one of the things that did happen as soon as I started making videos was I started getting comments from, for want of a better word, the guilters. Are all the guilters bad? Well, no, they're not actually. There are some bad ones, yes. Yeah, both myself and Ericozy, and I'm sure plenty others have come across some particularly vile ones, but they have thankfully seem to have disappeared. Certainly, as we start to get further and further down the road towards the truth, they seem to have disappeared, and one or two of them are slightly changing their tune now. The interesting thing, of course, is that the guilters, were they completely wrong? Maybe not, because it now appears as if they were only, a couple of 3 dozen yards off target with, the person or persons responsible for the disappearance of Teresa Halbach. We now know that the CD has been sealed. The reason for that, of course, is because there are images on there which are illegal. It's illegal just to look at those images, regardless of whether you've actually downloaded them and stored them on a computer. That's it, end of. Which beggars belief that Ken Kratz should say that the CD of the, investigative report on the computer was of no evidentiary value. But of course they presented as being Brendan's computer, which, if it was Brendan's, then surely they would have used all of that investigative report showing all these illegal images to prosecute Brendan and put a stronger case against him. But of course it's not Brendan Dassey's computer. It wasn't him that was looking at these illegal images. Interesting that Kathleen Zellner, in her motion, Stephen Avery names Bobby Dassey and Stott Taddick. Of course, Kathleen Zellner herself isn't naming them, simply saying that they should have been investigated. There shouldn't have been the tunnel vision. And of course, one can't help thinking that, the reason why Bobby Dassey wasn't investigated further and obviously prosecuted with quite either a hefty fine or prison or both for looking at these images is that there was some sort of trade-off whereby a deal was done with him. No. The one thing I find particularly interesting in all of this is that we've been hearing a lot about Ken Kratz and his devious tactics, and about Tom Fassbender and his, presumably, there is some law against him holding evidence in personal storage. The one guy we haven't heard much about is Mark Weigert, but I can't imagine that he didn't know about the computer on what was on the computer, because they're co-lead investigators. I would be very surprised if he didn't know about it. And so I'm reminded of a email that he sent me last year, March 1st of last year, in which he wrote, in part of it, he said, "I am 100% certain of their guilt and stand behind everything done in the case." Well, Mark, if you're standing behind everything done in the case, then you must have approved. You must still approve of what, Tom Fassbender? withholding that CD, of not investigating Bobby Dassey further. I'm sorry, Mark. I think you've kind of shot yourself in the foot there. Obviously, the effect on the Avery family at the moment must be quite, and Taddick family must be quite hard and quite damaging. I can't imagine it's very pleasant having conversations when certain members of the family think that a couple of the others have done something very, very bad. There's no way around that. I'm afraid it's the nature of the beast, as it were. I'm only going to speculate here. I'm not accusing anybody, but if they have done it, then why? For me, there's two reasons: either for their own gratification, or two. Sorry, there's three reasons, I suppose. Gratification, to deliberately frame Stephen, so that you could pin it on him. Although that in itself seems interesting, because I don't get the impression that that Bobby and Scott by themselves would be sophisticated enough to have in effect gotten away with framing Steve. When you think about it, it's 12 years down the line. They did a very good job of framing him. So, but certainly there was some jealousy there, apparently. So either, as I say, gratification, envy of Steve because he's going to become very wealthy, and Steve apparently was quite happy to rub people's noses in the fact that he was going to be wealthy. As I say, I've never tried to say that Stephen Avery is some sort of angel, not like his famous niece, who is an angel. But also, was it under orders? Were they under orders to do what they supposedly did? But to me, if it was merely gratification, then is it not likely that they would have struck again? A little bit like in the first 1985 case. Gregory Allen wasn't investigated for it and was allowed to go off, and eventually they caught him because he did other things. I can't help thinking, would that not be the case here as well, if it was purely for some sort of gratification? Anyway, I'm sorry. I've given you a probably more questions than opinions, but not to worry. We'll catch you soon. Take care. Bye for now.